Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Pavan Soni. I am the author of the book Design Your Thinking. And in today's short video, I'll be taking you through what is design thinking and how does design thinking play out in the form of a process model. So let us begin with a very simple definition of design thinking. Design thinking is a human-centric model of problem solving. Now, it is not about designing as much as about thinking. So what we need to understand is that you can solve any type of a problem using design thinking. However, it is about being systematic. Now, there are three keywords that stand out in the definition of design thinking. The first is that it is human-centric. Instead of being process-centric or say product-centric or market-centric, investor-centric, competition-centric, we're looking at human centricity. And don't reduce human narrowly as your customer. This human could be absolutely anybody. It could be an employee, it could be a supplier, it could be a channel partner, or anybody for that matter. So it is human centricity. The second is systematic. Now, a lot of people do a lot of problem solving, but most of it is ad hoc, commonsensical ways. Whereas what design thinking advocates is a very systematic approach, and that is a standout feature of this technique. And third is problem solving. So it is not to do with designing anything per se, though the word design is there in design thinking, and people often get confused that design thinking is to do with designing something per se, but not necessarily. So it's a human-centric systematic model of problem solving. Now let us try to understand the process model of design thinking. So design thinking is a 5-stage model. The first stage is called inspire. Then we have empathize and define, which is followed with ideation. Then we have prototype and test, and finally scale. Now against the conventional wisdom where we think that innovation must start with an idea, what design thinking insists at that innovation neither starts with an idea nor with a problem. Instead, it starts with an inspiration to do something different than what it is as of today. Now, it doesn't have to be always that you're trying to solve an issue. You might be bettering things up. You might be improving the performance. You might be creating something entirely new in the form of an experience or a product. Now, a good example of inspiration could be what Kennedy gave to America in early 1960s, which is to say that we need to put a man on the moon and bring him back safely by the end of this decade. Now, in that inspiration, America was not trying to necessarily solve a problem, but in doing so, what ushered in was a space age, and by the year 1969, we had Neil Armstrong walking on the surface of moon. Now, a good candidate for inspiration is a design brief. And a good design brief is exciting enough that it motivates people, but it must also have a legitimate constraint and should be vague enough that it doesn't offer quick answers. For example, when Anand Mahindra was mooting the idea of XUV 500, the design brief that he gave to his engineers was to make a world-class SUV for the value-conscious Indians. Or for example, when Kishore Biyani was conceptualizing Big Bazaar, he gave the design brief to his team that how do we give a shopping experience to the average Indian that only the rich could have. So that's your inspiration stage. The second stage is empathize and define. Empathy is about understanding other people's pain proactively. Now, the thing that we need to understand is that we are not trying to solve some problem, but we are trying to solve somebody's problem. And unless and until we understand that somebody and her problem, we will be always off the mark. So in empathizing, we use a whole range of methods and techniques like we use empathy map, we use stakeholder map, customer journey map, problem exploration mind map, pain gain analysis, and a whole bunch of methods to try and understand the problem from a human-centric perspective and from multiple people's perspective before we define the problem which is worth solving. So empathy and define is a very crucial stage of design thinking because we don't want to solve a problem that is not important enough or that doesn't excite the particular team. So a lot of time is actually spent in this particular stage. And once you have narrowed down the problem which is worth solving, then we go into the ideation stage. What we need to bear in mind in the ideation stage is that we should aim for a lot of average ideas before settling down for a few good ideas. Now, this can be one of the most counterintuitive insights around creativity, that why should I be looking at a lot of ideas? But the fact remains that quality comes only out of quantity. And when you are reducing the quantity, when you are reducing the quality rather of the ideas that you are expecting, only then you can have a lot. So here we use a bunch of methods, such as we use challenging the assumptions across the value chain, 3 tiers of non-customers, designing for the extreme, analogous design. We use lateral thinking triggers. So in my book Design Your Thinking, I have listed down a whole bunch of methods that one could use to be able to generate a high quantity, whereby a high quality of ideas. Now, what do we do with so many ideas? Obviously, we can't take all these ideas to the marketplace. We need to narrow it down to a much more manageable size, and that's where we do prototyping and testing. Prototyping is another very crucial stage of design thinking, which distinguishes this method from the conventional methods, wherein we are putting a lot of attention on validating the ideas along with the customer. Now, it's very easy to declare success premature, saying that, hey, I have a great idea, but it is along with the customer that we need to ascertain that this idea really makes a lot of sense. So prototyping and testing is where you give shape to your ideas. You use methods like quick and dirty prototyping, paper prototyping, clay modeling. You use storyboarding, script, narratives, scenario management, etc. And you try and see if these ideas really make sense alongside the customer. And once you have narrowed down your pool to the ideas that really make sense, is where you look for ultimate impact. And that happens in the last stage, which is called scale. I always maintain that scale is the real proof of innovation. If you're really trying to make an impact, you should aim at having a scaled level of impact. And that is where we use some of the methods like business model canvas, objectives and key results, etc., where you try to put a business plan and a scaling plan around that particular idea. So from inspiration all the way to scale are the 5-stage models of design thinking. You can definitely look about these models, the associated tool sets, skill sets and mindset for each of these models in my book Design Your Thinking. I hope this short talk was valuable to you. Thank you so much.